Chapter 1. Unseen Love. Mia woke up early every day. She didn't need an alarm. Her heart already knew when Alex would open his eyes. Before the sun touched the sky, she was already in the kitchen. She made breakfast, packed his lunch, and cleaned the house. She never sat. She never rested. She moved like she was working for someone, not living with someone. When Alex came out of the room, he didn't even look at her. He just said, "Where's my shirt?" She smiled softly and gave it to him. He didn't thank her. He never did. He only said, "You should iron better next time." She nodded quietly and whispered, "Okay." Every morning was the same. She wished he would ask her, "Did you sleep well?" or "How are you feeling?" But he never did. Still, she thought, maybe today he will notice me. When Alex went to work, Mia stood by the door until he disappeared. She waited for him every evening with food ready on the table. But when he came home, he looked tired and angry. He ate in silence and went to his phone. She wanted to talk. She wanted to tell him about her day, but his eyes were fixed on the screen. One night she said softly, "Alex, can we sit and talk for a while?" He didn't look up. "I'm busy." She smiled again, trying to hide her pain. "Okay, maybe tomorrow." But tomorrow was always the same. Slowly, her heart started breaking without sound. She looked at the mirror sometimes and said, "What's wrong with me?" She touched her face and whispered, "Maybe I'm not beautiful enough." Then she cleaned the mirror and went back to work. Alex never shouted much, but his silence was louder than any fight. When friends asked, "How's your marriage?" Mia said, "It's fine." But inside, she knew it was not fine. It was cold. It was lonely. Once, when she brought his coffee late, he said coldly, "You are always slow. Why can't you do things right?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry," she said softly. He didn't even look at her. Sometimes she cooked his favorite food and waited. He came home late and said, "I already ate outside." She smiled, hid the pain, and quietly put the food away. When he went to bed, she sat alone and looked at the clock. It was past midnight. She could hear his laughter from the next room. He was talking on the phone. Her heart started beating fast. She walked close to the door and listened. His voice was soft, happy. She had not heard that tone in a long time. "You make me smile," he said. The words felt like knives. She stepped back slowly and held her chest. She wanted to cry but stopped herself. "He loves someone," she whispered. The next morning she acted normal. She served breakfast and said, "Your lunch is ready." He said, "Don't forget to wash my clothes." She nodded. He didn't notice her shaking hands. When he left, she sat on the chair and looked at the empty plate. She thought about the love stories she heard in her childhood. Stories where people cared, talked, laughed together. Her story was nothing like that. It was just work, silence, and pain. That night she tried one more time. She wore a dress he once said looked nice. She waited for him with a small candle on the table. When he came in, she smiled and said, "I made your favorite dinner." He looked at his phone and said, Not now, I'm tired. She tried again. Can we talk for 5 minutes? He said, I told you I'm tired. Don't start again. She turned away, tears falling quietly. She whispered to herself, I'm not starting again. I'm ending my hope. That night she couldn't sleep. She lay next to him, watching his face in the dark. He looked peaceful. She looked broken. Her heart kept asking, why am I not enough for him? Next morning she woke up early again. She made his breakfast again, but something inside her had changed. She wasn't smiling anymore. She just moved like a machine. When he left for work, she looked at his back and said softly, one day you'll miss me. But I won't be here. She didn't know if she believed her own words, but they gave her strength for one more day. That night, the phone rang again. Alex laughed again. This time Mia didn't cry. She just sat silently, looking at the moonlight falling on the floor, and whispered, he doesn't see me. I am invisible in my own house. And deep inside, for the first time, she felt something new. Not anger, not hate, but a small voice that said, I deserve better. Chapter 2. The Other Woman. Mia woke up with a heavy heart. She looked at Alex sleeping next to her. He looked peaceful, while she had not slept at all. Her eyes were swollen, but she didn't care. She stood up slowly and went to make breakfast. Her hands were moving, but her mind was far away. She kept hearing his laugh from last night. The words, you make me smile, were still echoing in her head. She didn't want to believe what she heard. Maybe it was just a friend. Maybe it was a work call. But deep down, she knew the truth. Something inside her was breaking. She looked at the phone lying on the table. For the first time in her life, she wanted to see what was inside. When Alex went to take a shower, she picked up the phone with shaking hands. Her heart was beating fast. She opened his messages. The first name she saw was Olivia. She opened it. What she saw froze her completely. Good night, my love. You looked beautiful today. I wish you were here. Her eyes filled with tears. She scrolled down again and again. There were photos, too, smiling faces, hearts, and long messages full of love. She felt dizzy. The man she cooked for, the man she trusted with her life, was giving his love to another woman. Alex came out of the bathroom and saw her face pale. What happened to you? He asked coldly. She kept the phone down slowly. Who is Olivia? She whispered. His face changed. He snatched the phone and shouted, Don't you dare touch my phone again! Mia took a deep breath. You talk to her every night, she said softly. You smile when you talk to her. You never smile at me. He looked angry. Stop your nonsense. You don't understand anything. You are not educated enough to understand my life. Her tears rolled down, but she didn't speak. He walked out of the room, leaving her shaking. She sat on the floor and covered her face. I gave him everything, she whispered. Why am I still not enough? That night, she didn't ask anything again, but the pain grew heavier. Every time he laughed at his phone, she felt smaller. She didn't cry loudly. She just cried silently, like rain no one could hear. A week passed. She started noticing more. He came home late, He spent more money than before. When she asked, "Where did all the money go?" he said, "Stop asking stupid questions." One evening, she found a small receipt on the table, a gift shop receipt with Olivia's name. She couldn't stop shaking. When he came home, she showed it to him. "You are buying gifts for her?" He looked straight into her eyes and said, "Yes, because she deserves it. She's smart, confident, and not boring like you." Mia stepped back, her eyes wide with pain. "I'm your wife," she said quietly. "I clean, I cook, I take care of you." He laughed coldly. "You are just a maid who wears a ring. You should be thankful I let you stay here." His words broke her completely. She couldn't even stand properly. She went to the kitchen and sat on the floor. She looked at her hands, the same hands that made him food every day. She whispered, "These hands worked for love, but got only insult." The next morning, she tried to talk again. "Alex, please," she said. "I can be better. I can learn. I can study." He said without emotion, "You can never be like her. She's everything you're not." That day she finally understood. It was not her cooking, not her looks, not her silence. He simply didn't love her. He had already given his heart to someone else. When her mother called that evening, she tried to sound normal. "I'm fine, Ma." But her voice cracked. Her mother said, "You don't sound fine, my child." Mia smiled through tears. "I'm just tired." After the call, she sat quietly for a long time. Her eyes were dry, but her heart was crying. She said to herself, "He has someone else. He chose her, but I will not lose myself." That night, she didn't wait for him to come home. She turned off the lights and lay down, but she couldn't sleep. She kept hearing his laughter again and again. Her pillow was wet with tears, but she said softly, "One day, he will know what he lost." Chapter 3. Worth nothing. Mia no longer asked questions. She stopped waiting for answers that never came. She still cooked, cleaned, and smiled, but something inside her had died quietly. Her eyes had lost their shine. Her voice had lost its hope. Alex came home late every night. He didn't even look at her now. When she placed dinner on the table, he said coldly, "I already ate." She nodded, took the plate away, and whispered to herself, "It's okay. At least I tried." Days passed like empty pages. One evening, Mia asked softly, "Alex, can you give me a little money? My mother is not well." He didn't look up from his phone. "I can't waste money on useless things," he said. His tone was sharp. She felt like someone had hit her heart. That night she went to the bedroom and sat in the dark. Her hands were shaking. She opened his wallet, not to take money, but to see what mattered to him. Inside, she found a small note written in a woman's handwriting. "Love you forever, Olivia." Her tears dropped on it. The next day, she saw a message on his phone. It said, "Thank you for the money, darling. I'll buy that bag today." Her eyes widened. He had sent her money, the same money he refused to give for her mother's medicine. She whispered, "He gives her everything, and I don't even get care." That evening, when he came home, she couldn't control herself anymore. Alex, she said, why do you spend on her? Why not help your own family? He turned to her angrily. Because she deserves it. You don't. You don't understand my world. You are not educated. You embarrass me. She froze. His words hit her harder than any slap could. You think I embarrass you? She asked in a trembling voice. He said, Yes. You are nothing but a burden. You are not smart. You are not modern. You don't even know how to behave. She stood there quietly, her tears falling one after another. I may not be educated, but I have a heart, she said softly. He laughed cruelly. A heart doesn't earn money. A brain does. Then he walked out of the room. Mia sat on the floor and held her chest. She whispered, I clean his world, but he calls me dirt. She cried until her voice broke. When her tears ended, silence filled her like cold air. For the first time, she felt empty. Not weak, just empty. The next morning, she made his breakfast like always, but she didn't say a word. He noticed and said, Why are you so quiet? Did I hurt your feelings again? His tone had no care, only mockery. She replied calmly, No, I don't have feelings anymore. He stared at her for a second and said, Good. That makes it easier to live with you. She looked at him and said, One day, you'll look for this quiet woman, and she won't be here. He didn't answer. He just left for work. After he was gone, she picked up a small old notebook and began writing her thoughts. She wrote, He calls me nothing, but I will become something. She closed the book and pressed it to her heart. It was the first promise she made to herself. That evening she tried one last time. She said gently, Alex, I can change. I can learn. I can be like her if that's what you want. He looked at her with cold eyes. You can never be like her. You are not her level. Her face turned pale, but her voice stayed calm. Maybe not now, she said, but I can try. He smirked. You'll fail, like always. That night, she cried quietly, but something was different. Between the tears, a small strength was growing. She told herself, He can call me nothing, but I will prove I'm worth everything. When he came to bed, she looked at him one last time, with sadness and strength mixed together. You don't see me now, she whispered in her heart, but soon you'll see what you threw away. The next morning, she smiled for the first time, not for him, but for herself. That smile was small, but it carried a promise of a new beginning. Like, subscribe, and share. Read this story and many more on our website bookishenglish.com. Link in the description. Chapter 4. The Goodbye Letter. Mia stopped talking much. She no longer waited for Alex to change. Every word from him now felt like a stone. Still, she stayed calm. She did her work in silence. Her face looked peaceful, but her heart was tired. One evening, Alex came home late again. He threw his bag on the sofa and said, You didn't even make my coffee. She looked at him quietly and said, You didn't even ask how I am. He laughed without care. You always find something to cry about. Can't you act normal for once? She took a deep breath. I am normal, she said softly. I just feel empty now. He looked annoyed. Then maybe you should leave. This house needs peace. His words hurt more than anything before. She said in a low voice, I gave you my peace. That night, she sat by the window and wrote a small note. The paper shook in her hand as she wrote, I loved you more than myself, but love cannot live alone. She folded the note and kept it near his pillow. Then she looked at him sleeping peacefully, the same man who had broken every part of her heart. In the morning, she gave him breakfast. He didn't notice her red eyes. Here's your lunch, she said. He nodded without emotion. After he left, she sat alone for hours. She thought about the last few years, every insult, every cold word, every time she tried to make him smile. She finally understood. He would never love her, no matter what she did. That evening, when he came home, she gathered her courage. Alex, she said firmly, we need to talk. He looked at her with irritation. What now? She looked straight into his eyes. I can't live like this anymore. I want to leave for some time. He laughed. Leave then. Maybe you'll realize your mistake when you come back. Her voice trembled. My mistake? He said sharply. Yes. You were never enough. You don't match my life. You never will. She stood silent for a few seconds. Then she whispered, I may not match your life, but I'll find my own. He smirked. You can't survive without me. She smiled sadly. I already survived with you. The next day, she packed a small bag. She didn't take much, just some clothes and her wedding photo. When Alex saw it, he said coldly, Going somewhere? She answered softly, To my parents' home. He looked at her for a moment and said, Before you go, sign these. She froze. It was a divorce paper. You already filled them? She asked. He said, Yes. I'm tired of this drama. Her hands shook. Alex, please, she whispered. Don't do this. I can change. I can study. I can be the woman you want. He didn't even look at her. I don't want to waste my life waiting for you to become someone. Olivia already is that woman. Tears filled her eyes. You're choosing her over me? She asked. He said simply, I already did. Mia stood there, her heart breaking for the last time. She looked at the papers and then at him. If this is what you want, she said, I'll sign. But remember one day, you'll regret losing someone who truly loved you. She signed the papers with shaking hands. A tear fell on her name, making the ink blur. He didn't notice. He just walked away. Mia took one last look around. Every corner of the house held her memories. The walls had heard her laughter, her cries, her prayers. But now she felt nothing. She whispered, Goodbye, Alex. Goodbye, pain. When she stepped outside, the air felt strange. She looked up and said to herself, This is not my end. This is my beginning. At her parents' home, her mother opened the door and hugged her tightly. You can stay here, my child, she said. Mia cried on her shoulder. I tried everything, Ma, she said, but love alone cannot hold a marriage. Her mother wiped her tears. You did your part. Now do something for yourself. Mia nodded. That night she couldn't sleep. She sat on her bed and wrote again in her small notebook. He called me useless, but I will make myself priceless. When she finished writing, she looked out the window and whispered, Tomorrow, I start again. Like, subscribe, and share. Read this story and many more on our website bookishenglish.com. Link in the description. Chapter 5. Rise from Ashes. Mia started her new life with pain still sitting in her heart. The first few days at her parents' home were quiet. Her mother spoke softly to her, but Mia rarely answered. She spent long hours thinking about everything she had lost. Her hands felt empty without the wedding ring, yet her heart carried heavy memories. Her father said one evening, "You don't have to prove anything to anyone." But Mia whispered, "I do, Dad. I have to prove it to myself." She knew Alex's words would never leave her unless she replaced them with something stronger. She remembered him saying, "You are nothing." Those words burned inside her every single day. One morning she decided to go out and find work. She had never worked before, but she didn't want to sit home and cry anymore. When her mother asked, "What kind of job?" Mia said simply, "Any job. I'll start from the bottom." After many rejections, a small clinic hired her as a cleaning worker. The pay was little, but it gave her a reason to wake up each morning. She cleaned the floors, washed the tools, and served tea to the nurses. When people ignored her, she didn't mind. She had faced worse. Every night, she came home tired, but her heart whispered, "This time, I'm working for me." After a few weeks, she saw a poster about evening classes for adults. Her hands trembled as she read it. It said, "You are never too old to learn." That line touched her soul. She took a deep breath and decided, "I will study." When she told her mother smiled through tears. "I knew you would rise, my child." Mia joined the night school. At first, she felt lost. The books looked strange, the letters blurred. She sat in the last row, nervous and quiet. But when the teacher smiled and said, "You can do this," her eyes filled with tears. The first few months were hard. She worked in the morning, studied at night, and often fell asleep over her books. Many people laughed at her. "You are too old," they said. "Why waste time now?" Mia only smiled and said, "Because I still have time left." Slowly, she started improving. She began to enjoy learning. She wrote new words on a small paper and read them on her way to work. Her teacher once told her, "You are my best student, Mia." "You never give up that night," she cried again, not from pain, but from pride. After 2 years of hard work, Mia passed her exams with the highest marks in her class. Her teacher called her on stage and said, "This woman is an example of strength." Everyone clapped. Mia couldn't stop her tears. In that moment, she felt something she had never felt before: respect for herself. She wanted to tell her mother first, but when she reached home, she found her mother sick again. The doctor said she needed treatment soon. Mia spent her savings on medicine and care. For a few days, her mother looked better. But one night, She took Mia's hand and whispered, "You are strong now. I can rest in peace." Her mother passed away quietly that night. Mia felt the same kind of pain she had felt the day she left Alex, maybe even deeper. She sat near her mother's bed and cried like a child. "You were my only strength," she said. "What will I do now?" But then she remembered her mother's last words. "You are strong now." She wiped her tears and said softly, "Yes, I am." After the funeral, she decided she would keep going. She worked harder than before and applied for medical college. Everyone said it was impossible. "You're too old for that," said one nurse. Mia smiled. "So were my dreams, but I made them new." She studied late into the night. Some nights she went without sleep, but she didn't complain. When she got her acceptance letter, she cried again, this time out of disbelief. She kissed the letter and said, "Ma, I did it." Medical college was difficult. She was older than most students, but that didn't stop her. She learned fast and helped others too. Her teachers respected her for her dedication. One day, a professor said, "Mia, you don't just study medicine, you live it years past," and she graduated as one of the best students in her class. She became a surgeon, Dr. Mia Roberts. When she held her certificate, she felt her heart whisper, "Now I know my worth." That evening, she sat alone and looked at her reflection in the mirror. "He called me useless," she said softly, "but I made myself priceless." She smiled gently and placed her hand on her heart. This is just the beginning. From that day, she decided to serve the poor. She started working in a public hospital where people who couldn't afford treatment came for help. Every time she treated a patient, she felt her pain heal a little more. Mia had become everything Alex said she could never be. She had proved him wrong, not with revenge, but with success. She had learned that power doesn't come from hate. It comes from self-respect. That night, she sat near her window again, but this time she didn't cry. She opened her old notebook and wrote one final line under her first promise. "He called me nothing. Now, the world calls me doctor." Chapter 6. Becoming Mia Roberts. Mia's new life was busy, but her heart was full of purpose. Her long days as a medical student had turned into longer days as a doctor. She worked hard, but this time she loved every moment of it. She was no longer the woman who waited for someone's approval. She was now a woman who created her own worth. Every morning she wore her white coat and whispered to herself, "I earned this." The first time she saw her name tag, Dr. Mia Roberts, her eyes filled with tears. For years she had been called useless, illiterate, and weak. Now people called her doctor. It was more than a title. It was the proof of her strength. Her first surgery was a small one, but it changed everything inside her. The patient's family held her hand and said, "You saved a life." Mia smiled and said softly, "Saving others saved me first." Those words stayed with her. She started helping poor patients for free. When people asked why, she said, "Because I know how it feels to be helpless." Many people came to her hospital just to meet her and thank her. Her story began to spread slowly, first in the city and then across the state. One day, a reporter came to take her interview. He said, "Doctor, people call you the woman who rose from pain. Is that true?" Mia smiled. "Yes," she said, "but I didn't rise to prove them wrong. I rose to prove myself right." Her interview went viral. Magazines printed her photo with titles like, "The Woman Who Never Gave Up." When she saw her name on the cover, she didn't feel pride. She felt peace. She remembered her mother's words, "You are strong now," and whispered, "You were right, Ma." One afternoon, after finishing surgery, Mia sat in her office with her old notebook, the same notebook where she once wrote, "He called me nothing, but I will become something." She smiled and wrote a new line under it. "Now I have become everything I dreamed of." That night, as she was leaving the hospital, she saw a familiar face in the waiting area. For a moment, her steps stopped. It was Alex. His eyes looked tired and full of regret. He stood up slowly and said, "Mia." Her heart beat faster for a second, but she stayed calm. "What are you doing here?" she asked. He took a step closer and said, "I saw your interview. I didn't know you could become this. I didn't know you had this strength." Mia looked straight at him and said quietly, "You never tried to know." He lowered his eyes. "I made mistakes, Mia. I shouldn't have left you." She smiled softly. "You didn't just leave me. You broke me, but breaking me made me stronger," he said. "Can we start again?" She shook her head gently. "No, Alex. You wanted a perfect woman. You didn't see that I already was one." His voice cracked. "I was blind," she replied calmly. "And I was too loyal to someone who didn't deserve my love." He began to cry. "I lost everything, Mia." Olivia left me too. Mia's eyes didn't show hate, only quiet sadness. That's how life teaches us. You lose what you don't value. He wiped his tears and whispered, "I don't want money. I just want you back." She stepped back. "You had me once, Alex. But you didn't see my worth then. You don't get a second chance to respect the same heart you broke." He looked helpless. "So this is the end?" Mia nodded. "No, this is closure. I forgave you long ago, but forgiveness is not an invitation to return." He stood silent for a while and then said, "You changed, Mia." She looked at him and said, "No. I became who I was always meant to be." Alex left the hospital quietly. Mia watched him go, not with anger, but with peace. She whispered, "Thank you for teaching me pain. Without it, I would never have found my power." That night, Mia went home and looked at her reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back was not the broken wife from the past. She was a fighter, a healer, a symbol of hope. She touched the mirror gently and said, "I'm proud of you." The next morning, she received a letter from the state medical board. It said she had been selected for a national award for her service. She read it with a soft smile. "Life finally saw what he couldn't," she said quietly. When she stood on the stage to receive the award, people clapped loudly. She held the trophy and spoke to the audience. Her voice was calm but powerful. Years ago I was called nothing. Today I stand here as proof that pain can be a teacher. If someone ever tells you that you are less, remember, you can always rise again. The hall was silent for a moment and then filled with applause. Mia smiled, not for fame, but for peace. The woman who once begged for love now inspired others to love themselves. That evening, she walked out of the event hall and looked at the sky. She whispered softly, "Ma, this was for you." Then she smiled and walked away, not toward the past, but toward a new tomorrow that she had built with her own hands. Chapter 7. The Return. A few days after the award ceremony, Mia's photo appeared in every newspaper. People talked about her strength, her story, and her kindness. But far away, Alex looked at that photo again and again. Each time, his eyes filled with regret. He remembered every cruel word he had said. "You are nothing." That line now burned inside him like fire. One evening, he stood outside her hospital again. His hands were shaking. When he saw her walking toward her car, he said softly, "Mia." She turned, calm and confident, the same woman he once ignored. "Alex," she said slowly, "what are you doing here again?" He looked down. "I just wanted to see you one last time. I know I don't deserve to stand here, but I couldn't stop myself." She said nothing. He took a deep breath and continued, "You became everything I never believed you could be. You proved me wrong." She looked at him without anger. "I didn't rise to prove you wrong," she said. "I rose because I had to survive." He stepped closer. "I can't sleep, Mia. I can't forget the things I said. I was cruel. I was blind." She nodded quietly. "Yes, you were." Tears came to his eyes. "I thought money and power made me strong, but I was the weakest man alive. You were the one with strength. You always were." She looked away for a second and said, "Then why didn't you see it when I needed you most?" He had no answer. "I was foolish," he said softly. "I left gold for dust." She gave a small, sad smile. "You didn't just leave gold, Alex. You buried it." He tried to hold her hand, but she moved back gently. "Please don't," she said. "That hand once threw away my love. I can't let it hold my peace." He cried like a child. "I don't want anything. I only want your forgiveness." She took a deep breath. "You already have it. I forgave you long ago, but forgiveness is not an open door to walk back in." He looked broken. "So this is really the end?" she said softly. "No, Alex. It's the beginning of peace, for both of us." He nodded slowly. "You were the best thing in my life, and I destroyed it." She looked at him and said, "You didn't destroy it. You gave it direction." She turned to leave. He whispered, "Mia, do you ever think of me?" She stopped for a second. "Sometimes," she said, "but only as the man who taught me what love should never feel like." He couldn't speak anymore. She walked away without looking back. Her steps were calm, not heavy. She was not running from her past now. She was walking toward her peace. That night, she wrote one final line in her notebook. He came back when I no longer needed him. That is what freedom feels like. Like, subscribe and share. Read this story and many more on our website, bookishenglish.com. Link in the description. Chapter 8. Love that heals weeks passed after that last meeting with Alex. Mia didn't feel angry. She didn't even feel sad anymore. What she felt now was peace, something she had waited for her whole life. She finally understood that healing doesn't come from revenge. It comes from acceptance. One Sunday morning, Mia went for a small charity event. She had been invited to speak about her journey. After her speech, an older lady said, "Doctor, you changed my daughter's life. She studies because of you." Mia smiled and said softly, "That's all I ever wanted, to help others become what they dream of." As she was leaving, she heard a gentle voice behind her. "You speak with your heart," the man said. She turned and saw Daniel, a simple man with kind eyes. He had come to the event as a volunteer. He smiled and said, "I've heard your story, but I think the real story is how you still smile after all that." She laughed lightly for the first time in a long time. "Maybe pain teaches us to smile differently," she said. They began talking more. His kindness reminded her of something she thought was lost: pure respect. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel stayed in touch. He never treated her like a title or a name. He treated her like a person. When he texted, he didn't say, "Dr. Mia." He said, "How are you today?" That simple question felt special to her. One evening, while they sat together after an event, Daniel looked at her and said, "You know what I like most about you?" She asked, "What?" He smiled. "You survived, but you didn't turn bitter." She looked down and whispered, "Because bitterness only keeps you in the past." They started meeting often, and Mia began to feel something new: comfort without fear. Daniel didn't ask about her past. He didn't care about her fame or money. He only cared if she had eaten, if she was tired, if she was happy. One day, he said softly, "I don't know much about your old life, but I can promise you one thing. I'll never make you feel small." Tears filled her eyes. "That's all I ever wanted," she said. Months later, Daniel proposed to her in the simplest way. No rings, no crowd. He just said, "Mia, I want to build a calm life with you. Will you walk with me?" She smiled with tears and said, "I've walked through fire. Walking with peace will be easy." They got married quietly. It wasn't a big wedding, but it was full of love. After marriage, one evening, she told him everything: her past, her pain, her mistakes. He listened silently. When she finished, she said, "Now you know who I am." Daniel took her hand and said, "Now I love you even more." Mia's heart felt light again. For years, she had lived waiting for someone to value her. Now, someone loved her without conditions. She finally knew what love truly meant: not being perfect, but being accepted. She started a new project to teach poor women basic education and health awareness. When asked why she started it, she said, "Because no woman should ever feel worthless like I once did." Every evening, Daniel and Mia sat together and talked about their day. Sometimes he made her laugh, sometimes she made him think. But every night ended with peace, not pain. One night she looked at her old notebook again. On the last page she wrote, "I was once treated like a maid, but I made myself a name. And now I am loved for my heart, not for my perfection." She closed the notebook and smiled. Life had finally come full circle.
Whether you're starting your English journey or improving your skills, our stories will help you understand English naturally. Listen, read along, and enjoy learning every day. Glowing Star. Bell, don't forget to subscribe channel Basic English Story and turn on notifications.